Today I am going to discuss pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, also called the hypophysis. Hypophysis means it is lying under the brain and it is a small gland. Its diameter is 1 centimeter and weight is about 0.5 to 1 gram. When we will weigh it, its weight is about 1 gram. It lies in the Sella turcica. Sella turcica is also called saddle-like structure. It is a saddle-like structure which is usually put on the horse before riding, and it is a bony cavity at the base of the brain. Sella turcica is a bony cavity at the base of the brain in the middle cranial cavity. This is the anterior, it's the medial, and it's the posterior cranial cavity. And the Sella turcica is lying in the middle cranial fossa, and the pituitary gland lies in this fossa and is connected to the hypothalamus by pituitary or hypophysial stalk. Physiological division of the pituitary gland. Physiologically, the pituitary gland is divided into two distinct portions. The anterior pituitary, also known as the adenohypophysis. This is the anterior pituitary. It is also called the adenohypophysis. And the posterior pituitary, also known as the neurohypophysis. The posterior portion originates from the hypothalamus and it contains glial cell, so it is called the neurohypophysis. Between these is a small, relatively avascular zone called the pars intermedia, and it is a vascular area which is almost absent in human being but is much longer and much more functional in some lower animal. Embryology of pituitary gland. Embryologically, the two portions of the pituitary originate from the different sources. The anterior pituitary from the rethix pouch, which is an embryonic invagination of the pharyngeal epithelium. This is rethix, and this is the pharyngeal pouch. He discovered this pouch from which the anterior pituitary gland portion arises. The posterior pituitary arises from a neural tissue. The posterior portion originates from the hypothalamus. The origin of the anterior pituitary from the pharyngeal epithelium explain the epithelioid nature of its cells, and the origin of the posterior pituitary from the neural tissue explain the presence of large number of glial type cell in this gland. Anterior pituitary or adenohypophysis. It is also called master gland because it regulates many other endocrine glands through its hormone. Anterior pituitary consists of three parts: pars distalis, this is the pars distalis, pars tubularis, and pars intermedia. These are the three portions of the anterior pituitary lobe. Type of cell. The anterior pituitary has two types of cell which have different staining property. Chromophore cells or acidophilic cell, these are the acidophilic cell, and chromophilic cell or basophilic cell. These are this take basophilic stand and this take acidophilic stand, so they are called acidophilic and basophilic cell or chromophore cells and chromophil cell. About 30 to 40% of the anterior pituitary cell are somatotropes that secrete growth hormone. 30 to 40% cell of the anterior pituitary secrete growth hormone, and about 20% are corticotropes that secrete ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. Each of these cell type accounts for only 3 to 5% of the total mass. They secrete powerful hormone. These cells secrete powerful for controlling thyroid function, sexual function, and milk secretion by the breast. Hypothalamus control pituitary secretion. Pituitary secretion are under control of the secretion of hypothalamus. Almost all secretion by the pituitary is controlled by their hormonal or nervous signals from the hypothalamus. There are signals which are either hormonal or nervous from the hypothalamus, pituitary gland. It is controlled by these hormonal or neuronal signals. Indeed, when the pituitary gland is removed from its normal position beneath the hypothalamus and transplanted to some other part of the body, its rates of secretion of different hormones except for prolactin fall to very low level. So it shows that when it is implanted in another region of the body and its connection is cut from the hypothalamus, its secretion become very markedly decreased. Secretion from the posterior pituitary is controlled by nerve signals that originate in the hypothalamus and terminate in the posterior pituitary. Secretion of the anterior pituitary is controlled by hormone called hypothalamic releasing and hypothalamic inhibitory hormone or factors secreted within the hypothalamus itself. These signals or hormone or factor are secreted in the hypothalamus and then sent to the anterior pituitary. These are then conducted to anterior pituitary through minute blood vessels called hypothalamic hypophysial portal vessel. In the anterior pituitary, these releasing and inhibitory hormone act on the glandular cell to control their secretions. Here you can understand the mechanism. This is the hypothalamic area. This is the pituitary gland, and these are the glands on which the pituitary hormone acts, and these are the non-glandular organs on which the pituitary hormone. In hypothalamus, dopamine or prolactin inhibitory or prolactin releasing hormone is produced in hypothalamus and produce prolactin in the pituitary and it on the breast, which is non-endocrine organ. Thyroid stimulating hormone or thyrotropion which act in a thyroid gland, and then it produce thyroid hormone by the thyroid gland. Or CRH cause release of adrenocorticotropic hormone by the anterior pituitary. It act on adrenal cortex and produce cortisol. Growth hormone inhibitory hormone or growth hormone releasing hormone. They are also produced by the hypothalamus. They produce in the anterior pituitary either the growth hormone or inhibit the growth hormone, and then it act on many tissue. Like the cortisol act on many tissue, thyroid hormone act on many tissue. In the same way, growth hormone also act on many tissue. Gonadotropin releasing hormone, it is also tropins, and it cause release of follicular stimulating hormone or luteinizing hormone, which are gonadotropins in nature, and it act on endocrine cell of the gland. They are either androgen in male, they produce testosterone, or in female they produce estrogen or progesterone by the ovary. Androgen is produced by the testes and estrogen and progesterone is produced by the ovary. Anterior pituitary type of cells. At least 5 cell type can be differentiated in anterior pituitary. Now have 5 type of cells. These 5 cells type are somatotropes, human growth hormone which produce human growth hormone, corticotropes, adrenocorticotropin, ACTH hormone, and thyrotropes which produce thyroid stimulating hormone, and gonadotropes which produce gonadotropic hormone which include both luteinizing hormone LH and follicle stimulating hormone FSH, and lactotropes which produce prolactin. Hormone of pituitary gland 6 important peptide hormone plus several less important one are secreted by the anterior pituitary, and 2 important peptide hormone are secreted by the posterior pituitary. So 6 hormone are produced by the anterior and 2 are produced by the posterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary hormone are thyroid stimulating hormone, ACTH, FSH, LH, tropin, growth hormone, and prolactin. The hormone of the anterior pituitary. The hormone of the anterior pituitary play a major role in the control of metabolic function throughout the body. Growth hormone promote growth of the entire body by affecting protein formation, cell multiplication, and cell differentiation. This is the anterior pituitary, and when the growth hormone is produced, it acts on all cells of the body where protein, it causes production of proteins or help in growth, multiplication, and differentiation. Adenocorticotropin control the secretion of some adrenocortical hormone which affect the metabolism of glucose, protein, and fats. By the adrenal gland, the hormone control metabolism of glucose and fats. Thyroid stimulating hormone. The thyroid stimulating hormone act on thyroid gland. The role of secretion of thyroid and thyroidothionein by the thyroid gland, and these hormones control the release of most intracellular chemical reaction in the body. For the thyroid hormone receptor located in the nucleus of the cell. Prolactin promote mammary gland development and milk production. So when prolactin is produced in puberty, it increases the size of the breast and also cause production of milk. 2 separate gonadotropic hormone, follicular stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, control growth of ovary and testes. In male, these hormones act on the testes and produce growth of the testes, and female, it causes growth of the ovary. These hormones are also responsible for the reproductive activity. Posterior pituitary. Axonal transport to the posterior pituitary. Here the cell body is in the hypothalamus, and axon of these reach to the posterior pituitary, and then the hormone or signals or factors are then transported from the hypothalamus to the posterior pituitary gland. Nerve hypophysis. Nerve means nerve, under, hypo means hypo, and growth. It is under the hypothalamus. Hypothalamic cell body synthesize oxytocin and ADH. Posterior pituitary hormone. The 2 hormones secreted by the posterior pituitary play other role. Antidiuretic hormone, also called vasopressin, control the rate of water excretion into the urine, thus helping to control concentration of water in the body fluid. Oxytocin help expression of milk from the gland of the breast nipples during suckling and help in delivering of the baby at end of the gestation. It also act on the muscle, contract them, and help in delivery. Posterior pituitary lobe. Oxytocin stimulates smooth muscle contraction of the uterus and mammary gland. Antidiuretic hormones stimulate water reabsorption in collecting tubules, and vasopressin stimulate vasoconstriction. Lack of this cause diabetes insipidus. Hypothalamic hypophysial portal blood vessel of the anterior pituitary gland. The anterior pituitary is a highly vascular gland with extensive capillary sinuses among the glandular cell. Almost all blood that enter these sinuses pass first through anterior capillary bed in the lower hypothalamus. This is the artery. When it enter, it make a bed of capillary in the lower part of the hypothalamus. The blood then flow through small hypothalamic hypophysial portal blood vessel into the anterior pituitary. This is hypothalamic hypophysial stalk, and these are the vessels which pass through the stalk and enter the anterior pituitary. The lower portion of the hypothalamus, called the median eminence, connect inferiorly with the pituitary stalk. This is the lower end of the hypothalamus, and it connect with the lowermost portion of the hypothalamus, called the median eminence. This is the medial eminence, connect inferior with the pituitary stalk. This is the pituitary stalk, and the median eminence is connect. Small artery penetrate into the substance of median eminence, and then additional small vessel return to its surface, coalescing to form the hypothalamic hypophysial portal blood vessel. These make the hypophysial portal blood vessel. These pass downward along the pituitary stalk to supply blood to the interior pituitary. Hypothalamic releasing and inhibitory hormone are secreted into the median eminence. First, these hormones are secreted into the median eminence. Special neuron in the hypothalamus synthesize and secrete the hypothalamic releasing and inhibitory hormone that controls secretion of the anterior pituitary hormone. These hormones originate in various parts of the hypothalamus and send their nerve fiber to median eminence and tuber cinereum, and extension of hypothalamus tissue into the pituitary stalk. Tuber cinereum is an extension of the lower hypothalamus into the pituitary stalk. The ending of these fibers are different from most ending in the central nervous system, in that their function is not to transmit signal from one neuron to another, but rather to secrete the hypothalamic releasing and inhibitory hormone into the tissue. Neuron actually transmit signal from one neuron to the other neuron, but these neurons, which are originate in the hypothalamus and in the posterior pituitary lobe, take these inhibitory or excitatory hormone or factors from the hypothalamus to the posterior pituitary lobe. These hormones are immediately absorbed into the hypothalamic hypophysial portal system and carried directly to the sinus of the anterior pituitary gland. Hypothalamic releasing and inhibitory hormone. The function of releasing and inhibitory hormone is to control secretion of the anterior pituitary hormone. Secretion or inhibition. For most of the anterior pituitary hormone, it is releasing hormone that are important, but for prolactin alpha, hypothalamic inhibitory hormone probably exert more control. Thalamic releasing and inhibitory hormone that controls secretion of the anterior pituitary. These are the hormones, these are the structure on which they act, and these are the primary action of anterior pituitary. Thyrotropin releasing, they are peptide in nature, contain 3 amino acids, stimulate secretion of thyroid stimulating hormone by the thyrotropes. Gonadotropin releasing hormone, single chain of 10 amino acid, stimulates secretion of FSH and LH by gonadotropes. Corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH, single chain of 41 amino acids, stimulates secretion of ACTH by corticotrope. Growth hormone releasing hormone, growth hormone releasing hormone, single chain of 44 amino acid, stimulate secretion of growth hormone by the somatotropes. Prolactin inhibiting hormone, dopamine, catecholamine inhibits secretion of prolactin by lactotropes. So thank you. This was a brief introduction of the pituitary gland. We'll discuss all these hormones in detail in separate lecture. Thank you. See you in the next lecture.